Harry Truman in 1940 was a virtually unknown senator. In November of that year, he barely scraped by for re-election to the second term in the Senate from Missouri. And when he came back to Washington in January that year, Truman was getting letters from some of his constituents, letters from the Ozarks saying that something funny was going on at the site of an Army camp construction up there. It's now called Fort Leonard Wood, and it was being built at the time as the U.S. raced to get ready for a war that Franklin Roosevelt and others knew the United States would eventually be drawn into. And the letter writers were telling Truman, hey, there's a lot of funny business going on here. People sitting around doing nothing and drawing a paycheck for it, materials going to waste, contractors getting rich. Truman was a combat veteran himself, a local government official in Missouri in the 1930s, and he took his public service very seriously, and this was concerning to him. One of the things that's fun about Truman is he didn't send his aides out to check this out. He didn't get on a plane with a congressional delegation. Truman walked out of his apartment one morning in January 1941, got in his car, and he drove to Missouri. And he showed up at this construction site, a small man in a very nice suit, double-breasted suit, wandering around asking questions. And he saw there what the letter writers had told him. People sitting out playing cards and drawing a check for it, materials going to rotting in the snow. And from there, Truman kept going. He visited several other states and several other construction sites, and he saw the same thing. Harry Truman came back to Washington extremely angry. He got up on the Senate floor in February of 1941, and he said, hey, we should have an investigative committee to look into all this. And that was the birth of the Truman Committee.
Was it controversial at the time?
Oh, very much so. So imagine a little-known senator making the proposal to investigate the conduct of the presidential administration from his own party. Nobody, including Franklin Roosevelt, was at all wild about this idea. But it quickly became clear that if the Democrats didn't do it, then the Republicans were perfectly happy to take on this investigation. So the Senate ended up essentially throwing Truman a bone. They gave him $15,000, barely enough to hire a lawyer and a couple of secretaries, and said, go, here's your committee. Truman took that tiny appropriation and turned it into probably the most powerful investigating arm that Congress had seen.